gave him all the details. They said they're armed men and they have surrounded the church, and if you go there, they're going to kill you. And he said, no, let's go talk to them. He said, talk to who? He said, it's civil war. You and I are worth one bullet each. I mean, it's kind of worth, at that time, it was 5 cents or whatever, call it. So he said, no talking. He said, no, you don't understand, he says. He said, these people don't know the real Christ. They've seen a false image of Christ through nominal Christianity, through people who are fighting them. You don't understand. We have to go talk to them. We have to tell them about the real Christ, and really we have to shine, have him shine. They are in darkness. I said, no. I said, Pastor Fuad, what's going on? I thought there's something. Do you know where we are? I mean, I thought he was disoriented to time, place, and person. And I said, Pastor Fuad, please. I mean, what you're saying doesn't make sense. And he said, it makes a lot of sense. For years we have prayed that we would reach these people. Now God, the sovereign God, brought them to the church. So I said, and there is a part in me there that sort of rebelled, because he started moving and heading towards the church, and I didn't know what to do. There was part of me was like Jonah. You remember Jonah? The Lord calls him in the first chapter of Jonah, and he asks him to go to Nineveh and say, speak to these people about my grace and mercy. This is first chapter 1, verse 2. Chapter 3, immediately right after, it says, but Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed to Tarshish. Don't blame Jonah. The Ninevites, these Assyrians, they were terrible people. Now see, look, like you talk about ISIS and what's happening up there in Iraq. They were as bad or worse. They had no mercy on their enemies, on the people of God at that time. They used to not only behead them and put them on the walls of Nineveh, but they sort of were incredibly brutal. And when he told him, go to Nineveh, which is east, Jonah said, Lord, are you kidding? No, I'll serve you in sunny Tarshish. Tarshish was like in Spain. He wanted to go to the beach there. The economy is much better. And he said, come on, I'll go west. There is great need in the west. And I felt the same thing when that pastor was moving towards that church building. But the Spirit of Jesus, rather than Jonah, whispered in my ears and said, follow that man. And follow me. And there Pastor Fuad goes to that church, the church building, and the minute he goes in, exactly what I predicted happened. They pull their machine guns, their Kalashnikov at us. And they kind of get ready to shoot, and they said, who are you? They ask him, and he says, I'm the pastor of this church. But I came here to welcome you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. He didn't say it out of timidity or fear. He said it with authority of Christ. He said, you brought your women and children. He said, they're our responsibility. This is what the Lord Jesus Christ called us to do, to help you, to reach out to you. You're welcome in the house of the Lord. And I came here to tell you, please stay. Let no one push you out. We'll serve you. And he pointed to me, he said, we even have a doctor here who can help you. And I tell you, in the beginning I rolled my eyes up and he said, me? I was going to tell him that I haven't finished my residency yet. But he said, yeah, we have a good doctor here who can help you. And we have a nurse, and the woman of the church would help your children and will even cook for you. And there I found how in the dark pit the light of Christ can shine through men and women. There I realized how our calling can be translated into real life experience. They stayed 60 days with us. Pastor Fuad told them, you're welcome to stay in the whole church, but in the chapel on Sunday, please evacuate it because it's a day of worship. But come and join us. You can use other rooms. And every Sunday they came and joined us in worship. He said, you're welcome. And we used to sit in the front and pray for Pastor Fuad that he would say the right words, not offend them. But he spoke the gospel of Christ, the gospel of grace and reconciliation, the gospel of love and healing, of light and life. And there the children, you know, we had the children's school or Sunday school, was full of all of these young kids, Muhammad and Ali and all of them. We had a revival for 60 days. They heard the gospel and they saw the light and they saw the Christ, the true Christ. Now this was a milestone. This was a reminder to me that God has called us to be His priesthood, a chosen people, that we might declare the praises of Him who called us out of darkness into His wonderful light. And on almost 2 months later, one day I used to go and check on them on a weekly basis. And then I find them evacuating the church. Now there is a woman who's married to their leader, and she sort of runs the show. Call her Muhammad, the mother of Muhammad, you know. And I told her, why are you leaving? You don't like our treatment? Oh, she said, no. You loved us and you were so gracious to us. He said, you know, my child, we're leaving. Not because you didn't care for us. You overwhelmed us with your kindness. But at the end of these 2 months, we discovered something very important. We discovered many things. First, that you are the people of God. And this is the house of God. And we can fight men, but we cannot fight God. It's not right for us to sit here, to stay here. This is a holy place. But my son, she was an older woman, she said, my son, do not be hurt or dismayed that we are leaving. We're all carrying the Gospels. He said, look at even my grandchildren, they're carrying the Gospels with them. Now we understand what is the true gospel. Now I want to tell you this, brothers and sisters, we are called on a rescue mission. You are called on a rescue mission. Before you leave this place, be reminded that the Lord is whispering and speaking to your ears and to your heart. I want you. You are called on a rescue mission in a dying, decaying, and self-destroying world. The second thing you find about Luke is the fact that he was a man of faithfulness and passion. Now I'm going to split number 2 into 2 things, faithfulness and passion. He was a man of faithfulness and passion. And how much we need faithful men and women. People who would persist. You find places that work against the tide. He sailed against the wind with Paul. Things were not in their favor. He was with Paul in all these hardships. He was with him when in Acts chapter 16, when he talks with the collective we, after they were called to Macedonia and they were persecuted, when they put Paul and Silas in prison, he was with them. He's standing with them all the way, even in the midst of the storm. In Acts chapter 27, he uses this term. He says, when we were sailing and we passed through Cyprus, the winds were against us. Not only the physical winds, but the winds of the whole world were against him. But he stood faithfully with Paul. And I want to call you to this. Be faithful to those who are serving with you. Work in unity together with them. Oh, unity should be at the heart of what we do. Be united with other groups who are working under ICMDA and other groups who are love the Lord and working in your field, the Lord would honor this faithfulness. You know what's the difference between the laser light and the laser beam versus the spotlight that you find here? The laser light, you find these photons that are emanated by the laser light, they sort of all move in one direction. One photon molecule would sort of bring the other, would tickle the other with it, and they all move in one direction. And because they're all moving in one direction, they will cut through a stainless steel wall. But the spotlight will barely make it warmer. When the Christians, the people of God, work in faithfulness, in unity of heart, centering on Christ, you find a tremendous power and tremendous ability to move forward. Look at the faithfulness of this man, this physician on a mission, Dr. Luke. In 2 Timothy 4:10 and 11, he says, Paul is speaking now. He's speaking there during the last days of his life. He says, for Demas loved this world and has deserted me and has gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia, Titus to Dalmatia. But only Luke is with me. Only Luke stood by his side. May God transform us into men and women of faithfulness and passion to serve Him. Passion to serve Him and serve the brethren and serve each other. Servants who are committed to be faithful unto the end, faithful unto death. Look at the early church, brothers and sisters. It wasn't only fun and fellowship. Yes, they had great fellowship together. But they gave their life. They looked at the Lord, the great physician, who gave His life for them, who loved them unto the death of the cross. And they gave their life for His sake and for spreading the good news. Look at what happened, the first kind of martyrs of the faith. Look at the disciples, how their life ended. James was put to death with the sword. We read that in Acts chapter 12, verse 2. Peter was crucified. And this was predicted in John 21:18. Matthew was killed by the sword in Ethiopia. John, the beloved, was boiled in a huge basin of boiling oil, but he survived it, and then they put him into exile. And James, the brother of Jesus, was thrown from the pinnacle from the southeast pinnacle of the temple. And then, when they realized that he still survived, they went ahead and killed him with clubs. Look at Bartholomew, who was skinned and flailed to death by a whip in Armenia. And Nathanael, the same. Andrew was crucified also in Greece. And Luke, Dr. Luke, was hanged in Greece. Thomas was killed with a spear in India during his missionary trip. And Matthias, the apostle, was stoned to death. Mark, they moved him in Alexandria on the streets and rolled him over until he was killed. And the apostle Paul was tortured and then beheaded by the evil emperor Nero in Rome in 67 AD. Now they were faithful unto death. And as you leave this place, a man or a woman on a rescue mission, life might not be easy, but you're going to be a man and a woman who's faithful unto the Lord. In order to shine for Him, you might suffer, and you might have difficult time, but the Lord is calling you to a great work of selfless, sacrificial love. The third aspect, I want to talk about faithfulness, I really want to highlight at this moment some of the image of your faithful. You all knows what's happening in Syria and the crisis. But in the midst of all of this, the Lord has kept for Himself faithful men and women who continue to serve Him and love Him whether in the medical field or otherwise.